Hey there, Cincinnati fans. Those of you who are going through withdrawal, we've got good news for you because break time is over. Cincinnati kicks off the second half, sort of their season. They did that 10 days ago, waited another 10 days, and they're getting it going here again this Wednesday night up in Montreal. We're looking forward to that match. We're going to preview that match tonight on this episode of Cincinnati Soccer Talk, but we've got a lot of other soccer to talk about with the CONCACAF Gold Cup and the FIFA Club World Cup going on, with some games right there at TQL Stadium that some of us had the pleasure of attending. My name is Brian Biedenbach. I'll be the host tonight of this episode 425 of Cincinnati Soccer Talk, joined again by Jacob Holton. Welcome back, man. It's been a while since we had you on the show. How you doing tonight?
Well, the last time I was on, it was really cold outside, and now it's really hot outside. So it has been a while. I'm doing great though. The heat is not getting me down. Okay, it's fine. It's summertime. It's supposed to be hot outside.
And you're wearing a hoodie though.
I am, yeah, but like that's kind of my thing at home. Is like I love long sleeves, so as long as I'm not outside, it's fine.
All right, I'll take that. It means your air conditioner is working, right? I guess so. Yeah. Maybe Apollo's been there for a visit. You're right. Maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll talk about that here in just a minute. And Coach is joining us again tonight. I think it's been a couple weeks. Coach, how you doing, man? Welcome back.
It has been a couple weeks. I was off continent in Central America visiting Honduras. So I am back and ready to rock and roll. I cannot do what Jacob is doing. If I look outside, I start sweating. So like you all are lucky that I put a shirt on for this podcast, much less a hoodie.
Are you like me, Coach, that you can look outside and start sweating, but if you step outside, you turn red immediately? Like you're burned in the sun as fast as you get in the sun. Is that
Definitely.
You?
Yeah. When I was a college coach, I literally coached all season in long sleeves, just wore dry fit shirts. I never wore short sleeves for that exact reason.
Yeah, I'd wear the big bucket caps when I go to games and when I coach, and people always laugh at me, and I'm like, look, man, I've got a pretty head to take care of. You don't want that thing flaking and burned. No way. Well, hey guys, you mentioned the heat. It is hot outside, and Jacob, I'm glad your air conditioner is working. But if your air conditioner is not keeping up, if your cooling system is not keeping up, it's time to give Apollo Home a call. And listen, when you give them a call, let them know Mike sent you. You are a listener of Cincinnati Soccer Talk, and Mike says that you get a discount just for being a CST listener. He's the only Mike in the office. They'll know exactly who you're talking about. Give Apollo a call. I know your air conditioner is struggling. Mine is struggling right now. Unfortunately, I don't live in Cincinnati and cannot give Apollo Home a call. So give them a call for me and check them out at apollohome.com. Gentlemen, we've been lacking some FC Cincinnati games, so maybe that's your worst. I don't know, but let's talk about best and worst, because there has been a lot of other soccer games going on that we've been watching on TV. Some of us live. Coach, I'll start with you.
Yeah, my best is simply just about having that many games on TV. When you're talking about traveling, being in the airport, sitting around, when you're talking about, I had some medical stuff with a family member, sitting in waiting rooms and things, like always being able to pop my phone out and watch a game, whether it's Club World Cup or Gold Cup or Copa Oro, as they call it in Honduras. It's been a blast, I think, just seeing all these teams play one another that you don't get to traditionally see on television. So that's my best. And for my worst, I'm gonna call a little bit of an audible and go off continent again. And when I was in Honduras, I got the pleasure of watching some basically street soccer. Honduran played on like a mini pitch, but it's just concrete amongst a bunch of boys at the school. And just like the worst player on those mini pitches would walk onto any club team here and be one of the better players. And this was not like a high-end school. This was like a school for poor kids. It's just a bunch of kids. Mm-hmm. And that culture just leaves me just thinking, man, the club soccer culture with the pay to play and everything in this country is so broken. And it just made me sad that we're happy for those kids, that they could express themselves and have so much fun. Sad for our kids that, they're not out there just playing all the time like these kids are.
Yeah, no doubt. I remember visiting Nicaragua a couple years ago and just playing out behind the school that we were working at, and the moves the kids were pulling off in bare feet, right? And my poor little like pansy feet. I had to wear shoes on this, gravel pitch that they were playing on, and they were just smoking me. Like, it's fun to watch if you get in that situation for sure. So good shout there, Coach. Jacob, how about your best and worst?
My best is FC Cincinnati is finally back, and we are going to go in full swing towards the end of the season. The back half of the season has begun. It's going to begin in earnest. We're going to begin having games 2 times a week. We're going to have Wednesday, Saturdays for a couple times. We've got Miami coming to town. We've got Columbus coming to town. First hell is real, the second hell is real. It's coming up, right?
That's right.
So I'm excited. I mean, it feels like it's been forever because FC Cincinnati is on the road for the entirety of June. So it's kind of a weird feeling because I'm just watching them on TV and then watching the Club World Cup. But I'm excited. I'm excited to see what that brings. My worst. I'm going away from soccer. The NHL season is over, and I am bummed out because now I have to wait until October for the NHL to come back into my life.
What's that? Just kidding.
So congratulations to the Florida Panthers, I guess, if that's your thing. It's not my thing, but hopefully my team wins it next year.
Yeah. Well, the NBA season's over too, I hear. I just learned that the other night. So that season feels like it never ends. That finals started in January, didn't they? I don't know.
Yeah.
So welcome to my world. First of all, watching FC Cincinnati all the time on Apple TV, MLS Season Pass, right? That's all I get to do, except for the few times a year I get to come be at TQL, which I did this weekend. I did get down to TQL to see the Dortmund Sundowns game on Saturday, which was so much fun. So my best, kind of two-parter best. The Dortmund party before the game at the pitch was incredible. They went all out. They wrapped the whole building in this yellow and black vinyl wrap, which is weird to say, celebrating black and yellow in Cincinnati. I know there's been a lot of talk about that. But they did it up really well. It was a lot of fun being there with the Dortmund fans and the Dortmund contingent. But then the Sundowns fans, man, were throwing a party in the stadium, which was so much fun. I don't think they stopped dancing the whole time. Right. I did get to see at halftime. I'm looking up on the big screen and saw Alex Steck, who used to cover FC Cincinnati, right in the middle of all the Sundowns fans. She was interviewing some of them, but they just wouldn't stop dancing. And so she just danced with them and was up on the screen. And just a fun time watching the fans from both of these teams really get behind their teams at a game at TQL in Cincinnati. It was a ton of fun. My worst, dude, it's so weird watching a game without having a dog in the fight. Like, it was good soccer. It was a lot of fun. It was really hot, but I found my brother sitting next to me in his Dortmund kit. He's a Dortmund fan, he and his wife, and I'm celebrating because these yellow jerseys are just firing on goal, score the first. And I was like, oh wait, that's the Sundowns. That's not Dortmund. And I knew that, but it was just, I got swept up in the fun of the game. And it was just weird. I was catching myself like, I don't know who I'm supposed to be cheering for or who I can cheer for. I just wanted to see a good game, and I got that, but it was a weird feeling. So it's a little bit of a stretch for a worst, but that's my worst this week. We got a few in the chat. Jose, his best, he says a couple of Club World Cup games that have been spectacular. Worst is uneven attendance at the Club World Cup, which, Jose, we're going to talk a little bit about that later in the show. Good call there. Rupesh says new signing coming potentially. We're waiting for FCC to officially announce that, right? I believe. And worst is this heat wave. So you were there on Saturday too. It sounds like, Rupesh. I know you were there the game prior to that too. So it was a hot day for that one for sure. So thanks for giving of your time to volunteer there in the heat. We do have some FC Cincinnati news to talk about. They haven't played for 10 days. Rupesh mentioned it here, and his best is a potential new signing coming in for FC Cincinnati. The name is Ender Ekenik. I believe I'm saying that correctly. It was Tom Bogert broke the story and said Cincinnati's finalizing a deal. We haven't seen, FC Cincinnati's very intentional when they announced their signings, and we haven't seen anything official on their site yet. But he's a 21-year-old coming in as a forward/winger, which something we've been talking about for a while, Coach. Do you see this young guy coming in as a potential starter, potential that we could change formation, or is he a depth piece coming in?
Yeah, I think whenever it's a U22 player, you have to pump your brakes a little bit and be worried about how much you can expect the kid to contribute. I mean, think about the U22 picks in the past that we've been really excited about that have come in and kind of been spotty at best. But really early on in this season, when people were talking about what signing you'd like to see, I said a U22 winger that could come on late in games when we're chasing a goal, when FCC's chasing a goal, and flip that to a 4-3-3 formation and have him opposite a guy like Luca Orishano, and that can plug in as a wing back when needed and kind of learn that position in some of the less intense games, or to give you a little more offensive threat as a wing back. So I think this is the perfect profile of guy to sign. I would be shocked if he's good enough to lock down a starting job. I mean, U22 signings just hardly ever do that unless they're U22s going to Miami to play with Messi that could have gone to play for like one of the big 5 leagues or something already. You know, when you're pulling guys out of these leagues, you know, in South and Central America, like, you're not really expecting them to come in and lock down day in and day out starting roles.
Yeah, and we've had a few misses there, but you know, we were talking before the show a little bit about Flores, right? Comes in as U22. It's getting a lot more time than maybe we anticipated, maybe because one of our center backs is out with a couple of broken ribs. But to see him getting time over someone like Alvis Powell at this point is encouraging. Maybe that we've got our eyes locked in on maybe a younger player who can come in and get some time. Jacob, any thoughts on Ender Enrique coming in and where he might play and what kind of damage he could do on the field?
I don't know a whole lot about him. I know pretty much what everybody else knows. He's a young guy. For a young guy, he has scored a decent number of goals for somebody who's only 21 years old and probably only playing his first couple matches, you know, on a senior team. In terms of position, you know, Luca Orishano really hasn't offered a whole lot this season. I'm not saying that he's going to take Luca Orishano's place, but like maybe, maybe I'm not sure.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Yeah, and it's a spot that, by my understanding, he's a right-sided wing back or right-sided winger, which is where Orishano tends to like to play, so we can cut in. I think he's playing better as a role player on that left side with that left foot swinging in crosses. So to see a guy opposite him on the left would be fantastic. I don't know what it's going to come to that. We do have Rupesh in the chat saying asking any worries about the deal closing after what happened to Colorado Rapids today. I have not seen that story. Are you guys familiar with this deal falling through in Colorado?
Yeah, so they had a center back who they were trying to get, and I don't remember where he was playing. He's an Israeli player, and Tom Bogert was saying that it was pretty much a done deal, that they were just finishing up, and then
Gotcha.
FC Twente came in and nabbed him. So he's on his way to the Netherlands.
Okay, so the 2 center backs we gave them last year weren't enough. Is that it? It sounds that way.
It sounds like it might be, which is
yeah, and that's why I get excited about these stories that Tom Bogert breaks, and I get excited about a guy like Ender coming in, but I don't believe it right until Cincinnati, and this is why they wait, right? That's why they're so intentional about waiting. So yeah, you mentioned he's got 7 goals and 5 assists this season. It's, I did the math. If I did it right, that's not quite a goal contribution per 90 minutes that he plays, but it's getting close to that. So this guy produces either on the goal scoring end of it or the, assisting the goal scorer. So, yeah, Coach, I think that means, if nothing else, what our takeaway from this is that the front office at FC Cincinnati appreciates your insight here on Cincinnati Soccer Talk. So anything else you have to add for players they should go after before we get off this subject tonight?
I think that unless they jettison a couple players, I think that you're only looking at U22 players. So it's all about depth, right? Love another U22 forward, another U22 midfielder, but that's like these guys are such low hit rates in terms of guys that actually contribute. Even guys like Marco Angulo, rest in peace, who came in and like did pretty well. He was never good enough to lock down a starting role, right? Like he was kind of like had his problems. Same with Flores. Like he's a good prospect, but he makes enough mistakes where you don't want to throw him out there all the time. So the thing that excites me so much about Ender is clearly the tifos. When you have like Ender's Game, I don't know, the really famous science fiction novels, there's lots of possibility there. So even if he's like even just okay on the field, let's get him a tifo and we'll call it a win.
No doubt. Well, I'm excited to see what happens with that. The summer transfer window, we still have a month till that opens up. So that was going to be my next question. You kind of hinted at it already. Does Cincinnati, I know we don't have the space on the on like our GAM and all of that, the salary stuff, we don't have the money to make some big moves as it is right now. Do you think Albright and the front office have ideas to make some big moves this summer, even if it means, offloading a player, loaning out a player, sending a player to another club? And we don't need to speculate on who or how much and all that unless you want to. But do you see Albright making a move like that to be like, hey, we brought in these two big signings. We want to win now. We don't want to wait till next season to do it. You think that's in the cards for FCC? Jacob?
I think
I think the one thing that I really credit Albright and his team and the front office in general is their willingness to not stand pat. And, they tried really, according to all the reports, they tried really hard to try to get a really quality striker in last summer when they needed one the most. They made a panic move and brought in Teenage Hadabe, and it cost them a lot, and it is still costing them a lot to this day. And that, I think that was a little bit of a panic move and something that they probably didn't need to do. But they know that they have a core of players who could absolutely make a deep run in the playoffs if things gel together correctly. We all know that there are still, maybe some pieces missing, and they hopefully understand that too. And I feel like I've got confidence that they, if they have a plan and they see somebody or a couple players and they want to move things around to try to make it happen, I'm all for it. I'll trust them.
Yeah.
I assume that they're, always listening and always asking around. When I look at the roster, the trouble I see is like any guy that would actually move. I don't think FC Cincinnati can replace him, at least for this season, with something better. Even a guy like Luca Orishano, who there's been some Cruz Azul reported interest, you're not going to sell him, bring somebody else into the league and expect them to hit the ground running enough to even give you what he's giving you, which is not that much. Other than that, like nobody wants Sergio Santos or Corey Baird or, some of these other guys. We're not getting rid of Kevin Danke, and we would want to, or Evander. So Buka is too important to this team. Obi's too important to this team. Those center backs are all on too high of a salary. A guy like DeAndre Yedlin, anyway, go down the list. It's like all guys that, like, I think on their numbers, I'm not sure you could do a lot to get anyone to field those calls. Now, maybe somebody takes a flyer on like a Santos or a Corey Baird as a rehabilitation project. I don't know. But I think you're really looking at U22 players that might be able to come in. Maybe there's a spot for another guy like a Kai Kamara, like a veteran who could come in and like kind of do a job on a veteran minimum salary.
Yeah. The issue I see is we are really thin right now anyway. If you watch, we talked about it on the last show, if you looked at the bench, there were two goalkeepers on the bench the other night because we had so many guys injured, hurt, not able to be there, maybe some disciplinary issues. Like, I don't know what all is happening, but to have two goalkeepers on the bench and not even having a go-to midfielder that you could throw in the last 5 minutes because someone got hurt, you just can't do that. So in my head, like, I'm thinking maybe there's two guys. Like last year, we joked about Ian Murphy and Awazium, right, leaving so we could bring in one player. Like, I don't even think we could offload two players to get one decent player because we just don't have the depth right now to do it with some of the holes we're trying to fill. So I would love to see them make a move. I do think we have a team that can, if they can in the second half of the season put it together, they can still make a run. We're still sitting in second in the East right now, so we still have an opportunity to make that run. And who knows, maybe this Ekanik guy comes in and is a star like Orishano was last year before he hit the sophomore slump that he's in. Maybe he can give us something too. So I'm hopeful, always trust Albright and his team. They don't hit on everything, but we'll see what the summer holds. We've got another month though to talk about that and speculate about that. We are missing Miles Robinson though. Miles Robinson is away with the men's national team, which we'll talk a little bit more about the national team and how they're performing. Been a little disappointed in his lack of playing time with the team this year. So I do think they've got some good center backs back there, but I would like to see, if a guy's going to be missing from our roster, would love to see him out on the field a little bit more. What do you think, Coach, about the experience that he's getting there? Is this a good thing for him? Is this a good thing for the team? Where do you go with that?
Yeah, that's the question, right? It's impossible to know without being in camp, but you'd have to believe that with a coach like Mauricio Pochettino and with his staff, and then playing with guys, really experienced players like Tim Ream or, young players, but that are playing in the Premier League like Chris Richards, just being on the training pitch with those guys and talking to them, you'd have to believe that it's an overall good thing. He's getting high level training. Now, obviously, he's not getting the matches, and so you wonder if he's going to be match fit when he comes back. But I think all in all, anytime you have a chance to send your player to a national team, a decent national team, I feel better about him going, to the U.S. camp than I do about, when Aaron Bupenza was going to play for Gabon, where I'm like, okay, well, is he even getting any quality matches at all? Even if he's getting 90 minutes, is it really that good for him? So,
right.
I think it's probably a net positive.
Yeah. Any thoughts as you watch, Jacob, Miles Robinson get in the last 4 minutes or 5 minutes, the kind of junk minutes we call them sometimes. Is it worth the time he's getting out there?
Coach made some good points about the training that he's getting. I mean, he's going up against some really quality guys, but I think for guys, especially for Miles Robinson, who's not getting the minutes on the pitch right now, it's more of like a morale boost for him. It's a really big honor to be called up for your national team, especially the U.S. national team. I know, there's been a lot of talk about this golden generation, as it's been called, and, how they've performed or how they've underperformed or, not met up to expectations. But you still get to go and represent your country. And I'm sure that's a huge honor for a guy like Miles Robinson. I know he's been doing it for a while now, but, to continue to get those call-ups from the new manager is probably a huge boost for him, gives him a nice bit of confidence in his game as well.
Yeah. There was an article I think Carter Chapley did on FC Cincinnati's website about the number of players that have been called up to their national team this year with Stefan Chirilla, and we've had Amir Daly get called up, and Tine Shadeb, I think, even captained his team a couple times, and now Miles Robinson playing for the U.S. It's interesting to see it's interesting to see the experience that some of these guys are getting. Now, again, are they worthwhile minutes? Are they playing meaningful games? I don't know. But the thing that struck me that caught my attention was Amir Daly, is a name that performed early on, if you remember, in the CONCACAF Champions Cup for FC Cincinnati. I almost said the United States. For FC Cincinnati, there's too much soccer going on right now. Ended up with a broken collarbone, right? The guy's rehabbed. He's back on the field playing for his national team. We were really high on this guy early in the season, and I'm wondering if he's a guy that we begin to see late in the season, now that he's getting healthy, get back out in that right wing back position, which he was playing at that time. I don't know much about his rehab. I don't know much about his history and what he's doing now with FCC2 and all of that. Coach, any insight on Amir Daly? Do you know anything of what's going on? Do you think he's a guy that we could see late this season?
Yeah, I don't have a ton of insight. I've watched a few FC Cincinnati 2 matches, and I'm always keeping an eye out for him because I know he is on that the Dato Valenzuela memorial list of guys that we look at and we think could actually make the leap, right? And he's got the raw tools to be at least a serviceable MLS player. So the question is what does Pat Noonan think of him? Because Pat Noonan doesn't seem to pull young guys up and play them. See Steven Jimenez, who, came onto the scene as like a 12-year-old or something. I know he was 15, but he was young and actually looked pretty well. Looked pretty good. I watched an FC Cincinnati 2 match to check in on Amir Daly the other day, and Jimenez was balling, like playing kind of a hybrid 6'8", making a few slip passes. Like I didn't know who he was. I was like, who is that kid? I was trying to look for the number. I was like, oh, that is the long lost Steven Jimenez. But we just hear nothing about him. And I think Pat Noonan wants these guys to be professionals. We've heard it with Dato Valenzuela. All of a sudden he's not seeing the pitch. And there's like these weird cryptic messages about, well, he's got a few things he needs to work on. I think that Pat Noonan really wants these guys to come up to the team when they are ready to put in the hard yards every single day. And so does Amir Daly have that or not? I mean, only he and maybe FC Cincinnati, maybe Tyrone Marshall know. But I think that's going to be the key to getting him minutes, even more so than if he is the best player on FC Cincinnati too, like Rupesh said.
Yeah. I would like to see some of these guys get run out, but I can understand, right, the need for professionalism on the field, off the field. Who knows what's going on behind the scenes? Like I know we've been trying to get some players here in Fort Wayne for my other podcast, and we know there's some players. The communications directors kind of said, hey, we'll get them on soon. We don't want them to go just yet. And so just as far as representation in the media and even on the pitch, again, we're just speculating. We know nothing about these guys. We'd love to see them out there and get a chance. Hopefully they're ready to play soon because we've got a game coming up Wednesday night against Montreal. And I know there's rumor that did I hear Kubo was back training with the team? I think I heard that. I hope I heard that because he's a depth piece or a starting piece that we've been missing. Maybe takes that extra spot from Evan LaRue or whoever else on the bench that night. I think we're getting back to full strength. We've had 20 days off with one game in between here, right? The guys have been training. They've been resting, ready for a game. Do we see FC Cincinnati come back out full strength? And here's why I'm asking this question. Here's where it's coming from. The last game we saw 10 days ago, it looked like their first touch was a little off. They weren't completing the passes like they had been. Do we see that team again, or do we see a team that's corrected some errors, corrected some mistakes since the last match, and is going to take it to CF Montreal this Saturday or this Wednesday night?
I think that, you're always hearing Pat Noonan saying that they've been training in a good way, and he's always really happy with the intensity in training. So that leaves me hopeful. But then I think like this team time after time seems to come out and be not fully tuned in or a little bit sloppy. The good news is against a team like CF Montreal, you expect to be able to maybe get away with a little bit of that as long as they settle down quickly. Maybe this can be a game where a guy like Matt Miazga starts to really assert his influence as a leader and kind of does like, we are not going to start slow this game. Let's pull a Tyler Adams and like lunge into a challenge and get a yellow card like 28 seconds into the match, or what happened with Tyler in the Gold Cup, right? Like, let's get into it right away, get stuck in, like in the first 5 minutes, you want a shot on goal, you want a foul, and you want talking to from the referee or something. Like, let's really get in it and get after it.
Jose's in the chat, ever the optimist, says I'm not confident because of how we continue to play down to the level of our opponent. And there's something to be said about that for sure. But to your point, Coach, if we can come in, we can take get the shots, get the attacking get our guys clicking in the attacking third, get some long balls in there, maybe take the top off with a fast guy up top with Orishano, get the ball off his foot, let him make a run onto the ball would be fantastic, right? Lineup wise, how do you see them rolling out, Jacob? Are we playing the 5-back still? Are we sticking with that? Or we change it up to the 4-back to start a game and just see how it goes?
Pat Noonan hasn't really shown a whole lot of like willingness to change from the back five. So I think we're just going to see the back five again. I do think we're going to see like a full strength lineup, though. I don't think it's going to be like it was against the New England Revolution. I also, I feel like in the first half of that Revolution game, I feel like Luca Orashano was starting to show what he showed last year a little bit. They did play some of those balls in behind that he was able to chase down and like really give it one-on-one with a defender. He hit the inside of the post and it didn't go in, I'm waiting for that first goal, because I really do feel like once that first goal comes, that's going to give him just a little bit of a boost, and he's going to click on, and we'll see a little bit of what we saw from last season. But, I do think it's going to be the back five. I really do. I don't see it any other way.
Does Luca play on the right or the left this week?
Flip a coin. Flip a coin. Who knows?
Yeah. I think he starts on the left. And I think that's to your point, what you were saying is we saw a little bit of what we saw last year. And most of the time he was on the right side last year, but he had the confidence on the left to beat the guys, to get the ball on his right foot, cut it back to his left, right, and send some balls across. That's where Cincinnati is scoring goals. I say it every week. That's where Denke thrives. He can create his own shot, but if he can get a guy crossing a ball in, and that's what Luca can bring, more so on the left, I think, than on the right, because he gets on the right, he wants to cut in, he wants to take the shot. I still think there's two goalposts that are shaking from times that he hit them this year. One at TQL in the upper corner early in the season that did not go in. The guy can't catch a break. He's finding himself in some decent spots. I think you're right. Once one goes in, he gets dialed in. We're going to see a few more from him this season, and hopefully that's this weekend up in Montreal. Now, I know Montreal is coming in. They've got some injuries or some guys out this week. Coach, who do you're looking at their roster in Montreal and going, I'm glad this guy's not there?
Yeah, I mean, they have a few players missing for international duty, right? They have Joel Waterman, they have Jacob Seeley, Nathan Saliba. Those are all starters for them. So I think it's good for FC Cincinnati that they're not there. Bryce Duke is injured. So this is a team that is already struggling, that are also missing key players. I would say I'm pretty psyched that Saliba is not there, because I think he's one of the top maybe 5 to 10 defensive midfielders in the league. So not having him there, I think, will hopefully open up some space for Evander.
Yeah. I'd like to see, and we've said it all season, those top three figure each other out. And maybe this extended time in training with one another has built some of that. Like, I understand your tendencies a little bit more, because when you're playing games, and Coach, maybe you could speak to this, when you're playing games Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday at the beginning of the season, yeah, game scenario is what you want to see. I think with your guys, you want to see their tendencies, but you don't have that training time in between to really figure out, how do we correct this? How do we figure it out that, in the last game? So do you think the space that we've had has given them a little bit more opportunity as we go into this grueling gauntlet of Wednesday games coming up?
Yeah, I mean, like we've been saying all year, if the big three of Kevin Denke, Evander, and Dado Valenzuela can get on the same page, then we'll be just cooking with gas, right? That's the big three we're talking about.
That's the big three I'm talking about.
Right. In last week's podcast, if y'all haven't listened to it, Nick Haglin came on the show and he was talking about how Pat Noonan likes a 4-day build to a game, right? When you have Wednesday, Saturday games, you never have a 4-day build. And what that means is something's got to give. And a lot of times that is training time. You're not on the pitch together that often, or you're broken into smaller groups to get some individual work in. What also people don't think about is you don't have as much time to do big film sessions where you all sit down and watch a match together and point things out and talk about it. It's much more like individual clips cut by a coaching staff member and sent to players to watch on the bus or on the plane on the way to matches. And so sure, you might be talking to Luke Orashano, hey, this is what we need from you here. And separately, you might be talking to Kevin Denke, this is the run you need to make, but you don't have the time, the two of them, to look at each other, hear that at the same time, be like, oh, okay, we're going to connect in this way. How important that is, it's not important, but ultimately the players have to figure figure it out. And I always found that having long breaks in the season where all of a sudden we didn't have a game and I had more training time, what really helped me to work on the players, on the things that you never have time to work on, like gelling, like set pieces. It's like sometimes when you're just trying to figure out how do we want to get the ball from the back to the front, we'll worry about how to do a corner kick later, what we want to do on quarters later, so that is my hope, that these breaks, with not a lot of players missing, because really only Miles being gone, whereas other teams have, even Montreal, even lowly Montreal have, I think, 4 players missing to international duty, which, that doesn't say anything about the quality of the players or the squads, because it depends on the national team they're missing for, right? But anyway, now that I've been rambling for 20 minutes, I guess there's no way to say that it's not important. You just don't know how important it is.
Yeah, I think it's a trade-off for me, right? You get the time to do the film sessions, to work on the set pieces, to figure out each other's tendencies and what runs. You run off the right shoulder, left shoulder, like how do you do that? But then you come out potentially, and your first touch, again, if you're training well and you're training hard, that should still be there, but it's different than a game 90-minute match situation. And we did see Cincinnati come out a little flat this last week, and they know that, and so maybe they trained in a different way these last 10 days to come out and really play on the front foot this week, and having worked on some of these things and done some film work. I did find it interesting. You mentioned Nick Hagelin on the show last week. I found it interesting as we talked to him about his leadership and like what he's looking at when he's looking at game film and how he's talking to the guys on the field. The players, the way he watches individual players, not even just how a team, their tactics and how they move the ball around, but an individual player, and watching as a defender, which foot does he go to, right? Which that's maybe not as obvious unless you're watching film consistently on that guy. Which way does he like to run, diagonally, straight ahead? And, you do have the time, you hope, that some of these players can be looking at their individual matchups on the field to see what advantage can I gain on this player moving into this game. So looking forward to that match this Wednesday night. We'll have much more to say about it on Thursday afterwards. I know, I believe Justin Blair is recording a jersey swap in Jeff Tebbett's absence tonight, even for the Montreal game coming up. So look for that either on Tuesday or Wednesday morning coming out this week. We do want to thank our second half show sponsor, Beyond Exercise. You know them as a local physical therapy and fitness business that helps people stay active and injury-free. In fact, they've helped some of our local MLS Next Pro, and FCC Academy players with their health and performance needs. Check out their suite of services at gobeyondexercise.com. Now, we talked a lot about the games that are going on. So even though Cincinnati's not playing, there's U.S. men's national team that Miles Robinson's playing for. There is, the FIFA Club World Cup going on right now as well. Let's focus in for just a few minutes on the U.S. men's national team. There's a lot of talk around this team that struggled in their last 4 games. They get into the Gold Cup, and they're 2-0 right now. Maybe not the highest level of competition, but you've got to start somewhere, right? As you watch their first couple of games here in the Gold Cup here, how would you rate their performance?
So I actually have not watched any of the Gold Cup matches. I have talked about with people who have watched them, and they say they're looking better than they have.
That's the silence that we heard, right? When I asked the question.
Yeah. Sorry. I just, the Gold Cup is not really something that's huge on my radar, but I have heard that they have been playing better than they were headed into the Gold Cup. So hopefully, this is a sign that things are starting to turn a little bit. Maybe Pops is starting to get a tune out of them a little bit, and we'll see what happens as they advance further into that tournament.
Yeah. So we've got the two guys here, like, there's 2 sets of U.S. fans, like not really at all, and some that really follow them closely. And so didn't mean to put you on the spot there, Jacob. Coach, I know you've seen a couple games. How would you rate their performance out there?
Yeah, I would rate them at FC Cincinnati levels of frustrating. They are 3-0, but we're being like, oh, are these wins really sustainable? Is what we're going to be talking about as US fans, because they haven't really looked like they've just like dismantled a team, even like dismantled a team and not score, just like, oh, a few bounces that could have won and that could have went in. They're not creating a ton of good chances. I don't think there are really any players who are like, man, this guy has been awesome in this tournament. But they're winning. They're 3-0. You can only beat who's put in front of you. So I think now when playing against Costa Rica and then with maybe Canada on the horizon, that's where you get to see whether the U.S. is really here to play or not. The jury is out. It's been a weird and frustrating time under Poch in general, I think.
The first game against Trinidad was fun to watch. Like putting 5 goals in the back of the net was incredible to see. But even then, there was frustrating moments in it that could have been easily remedied. But we've got we don't have the guys we're used to seeing out there, right? We're missing Pulisic, we're missing Weston McKennie. There's a lot of guys that have been staples on this U.S. team that are not playing right now. So we've got a group of guys that some have been in the mix for a while. They're getting starting minutes now. They're getting to play full 90s. We got guys like Quinn Sullivan getting out there. And the talk this last match was, coach just wants to see what he's got. What's he going to bring to the squad this year if we can keep him on, right? So we've got, as I look at the players that maybe I'm not as familiar with, I think Patrick Ajimang that plays for Charlotte, he has really impressed me in this tournament. He's not scoring a ton of goals, but that guy is fast, and it takes 2 defenders to pull him down most of the time, and they know that, and so they're putting guys on him to drag him down. I think that guy's full of potential as a 9 that we've been looking for, that is decent with his feet, that makes some good runs, but is just strong and is going to run through you if given the opportunity. He's one that stuck out in my mind. Tillman is the other one that, to me, as I watch, I've not been as familiar with his career up until his role and his time with the U.S. men's national team, but I know he's been in and out. He's played a little bit here and there with some of the top level guys that are not there right now. I think he's taken advantage of his opportunity to lead this team, and he's playing like he wants it. In the midst of missing some of these big names, he's owning it and taking advantage of that opportunity. So he's really impressed me. Curious, Coach, as you watch, are there any guys that are standing out to you that maybe are ready to take their game, take that starting spot when the time comes, when everybody comes back?
Yeah, honestly, the only player out there that I think has impressed me enough to be like, wow, I will expect him to be a starter at the World Cup unless something changes, is Chris Richards. Obviously, you have Tyler Adams, but he has been kind of in and out with injury, so I'm not really counting him. He hasn't had a great game. He didn't have a great game when he started this last match. He was fine, but he will be there. But the guy that's impressed me is Chris Richards. Like, even a guy like Ajiman, you're right, his measurables, his size, his speed are like off the charts, but he makes enough mistakes and enough like heavy touches and things like that, where you're just I wonder how much against a good team could he really be out there and help somebody who really knows, a center back who really knows how to position against a guy who's bigger and faster than him. Who knows? I think all of these guys need to take another step before they're world-class players, but Chris Richards has stood out the most for me.
Yeah. As you look at the guys that maybe you expected more from, is there anyone on this roster that, like, man, I wish they could step up, I wish they could give a little bit more, it's not quite what I expected?
Yeah, I'm stuck somewhere between, giddy happiness and pain with Max Arfston because he plays for Crew. So I'm pretty happy to watch him flailing about out there, like totally clueless. And same with John Tolkien, because I kind of can't stand that guy. So watching him dribble the ball straight out of bounds 5 or 10 times in a match, I'm like, yeah, that's John Tolkien, fine. But actually Arfston, watching him play for Crew and the amount of his 1v1 ability and some of the balls he puts into the box, I thought, man, for the US, if he could do that, and he just hasn't. Like, he is a guy who I think had an opportunity to stake a claim as the guy behind Anthony Robinson, and I think he's fallen flat on his face.
Yeah. And they put Sullivan out there this last match to see what he's got. And I feel like I don't know what you thought of his play, but I felt like it was decent. But felt like he played like a guy that was trying to prove himself, was maybe getting into spots he didn't need to be in, trying to get on the ball a little bit. But I don't know that that's always a bad thing. But I don't know that he's that guy quite yet either. But it's good to see some of these guys get a run out there. I do stand by the fact that in a CONCACAF tournament, it's good, I think, to have some of our MLS players that play CONCACAF soccer that's a little bit uglier and a little bit more physical out there than maybe all the guys that are playing in Europe. I don't know. As I look at the attacking trios and the guys that are out there for the United States, man, I just felt like any combination. There were some beautiful plays. I'm not going to take anything away from these beautiful crosses some of these guys put in. Back post, I believe it was Aronson put a cross in back post to was it Tillman in this
Tillman.
last match. Beautiful header. Not taking anything away because there were moments, but it seems more consistently that guys on the ball, they had a runner clearly outside the back, and he's making a run. He's beating that back line, and they slow the ball up to pass it to the guy behind them to get numbers instead of going for the guy that's clearly beating the center back. Or, they're bringing it down the side, guys coming far post, making a run, and whoever it is with the ball, whether it's Sullivan or Arfson or who else, questions maybe, can I really get that ball there? I don't know, so I'm going to hold it. So I feel like they weren't taking the risks that they needed to take that I would have liked to have seen. And then sometimes they take a risk that they didn't need to take, that there's a guy running down the right. Man, I wish I could remember who it was. I think it was Ajimangs running down the right, and they cut it back to a guy running down the left, and they try to split three defenders. And unnecessarily, right? It would have looked pretty if it got through. So I think there's some things they're trying to figure out. I was a little disappointed in either play it simple or, just make the right read is all you have to do. And maybe it's harder than it looks as I'm watching on TV, but I think they had some offensive opportunities that they did not take advantage of. So I'd like to see more of that moving forward. There's also Club World Cup games, and here's what I'll say. I want to talk about some of these games here, but one of the things I noticed as I sat in the stands watching this Dortmund Mamelodi Sundowns game as it relates to CONCACAF Gold Cup and MLS soccer is it seemed to me, watching live versus watching them on TV, these guys as players respected each other a lot more than MLS players and CONCACAF players respect each other. And meaning, like, a striker's running, carrying the ball down the sideline. In the MLS, you're going to see a center back. If they beat that outside back, a center back is going to run and take them out, drop a shoulder, knock them out of bounds, and take the ball, and then complain that they got a foul called on them. The guys that I watched play on the pitch at TQL Saturday are playing ball. Like, they're running neck and neck, shoulder to shoulder, nose to nose with these guys and playing the ball. Sure, there were some tough physical plays, but watching, it's such a difference. I was waiting, like I'm bracing, Dortmund center backs running against the Sundowns striker, and I'm going, oh, this guy's going to sail. He's half his size. And he took the ball cleanly and went with it. So definitely skill, level of play is different, but that was one of my takeaways as I watched this game last weekend. So as we transition to some of these Club World Cup games, it is a different level of soccer than we're used to seeing on our fields here in the United States. So as you watch it, Jacob and Coach, as you watch some of these teams, I know you watch European soccer, you watch Premier League soccer, seeing it live potentially, what's the difference, Jacob? I know you were in the stadium this last week. What did you notice watching these games live versus watching them on TV?
It's really interesting to watch both of these teams try to figure out what each other are doing, and that process takes, I was really like paying attention hard in like the first 15 to 20 minutes just to see if there were any kind of tactical challenges that either side were facing. And the one thing that I noted, the Sundowns, they're quick, okay, and the Dortmund was playing an incredibly high defensive line. I mean, I'm talking like their center backs were almost at midfield, like almost the entire match. It was crazy. And the Sundowns would just play these long balls over the top. and they're just like, all right, you got pace, go try to beat these guys who are bigger than you. And it's just interesting to watch. These two teams obviously have never played each other. They obviously don't know a whole lot about each other except for what they've learned in whatever tactics meetings they've had leading up to these matches, which probably aren't super in depth because you're playing a whole bunch of different teams, so you're not going super in depth on these guys. But like, it's fun to watch them try to figure each other out. And especially as a neutral, like I don't have any rooting interest in any of these games. So I'm like, all right, well now I kind of get to watch soccer as a game instead of as a fan. It's a totally different experience. So that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Coach, I don't think you've been to any of the live games in the Club World Cup, but I know you've seen some of them on TV and whatnot. What are you seeing, or maybe not what are you seeing? Maybe you're familiar with these teams, but what does the Club World Cup bring to the United States, to the average fan, to get to know the game, get to know these teams? Has this been a good thing, or has this been a thing that's just been a lot of people are saying, it's a money grab?
Yeah, I mean, the answer to that, I guess, is yes, all of the above. I think for my shtick is basically the South American teams. This tournament has been awesome for them because they come up and you have, Botafogo, Flamenco. You have these teams. Botafogo, whatever, Flamenco, you have Fluminense, you have these teams coming in and filling stadiums or lower bowls of stadiums at least. And like you talked about with the Sundowns, like the fans are having a party. And a lot of these fans, they're not traveling up with the team, right? They're fans maybe coming from Canada, maybe coming from other places, but they're like, this is my one time to see my team play in person. Right. And so it's been a big win for those South American teams, not to mention the money is real for them. Like there are a few rich clubs down there, but not all of them. And so that money is real for the Europeans. I think it is just wearing the players out. This is where it becomes a cash grab, like what does $9 million mean to Chelsea? Well, okay, maybe it means they buy, 6 new players and send them out on loan for the rest of their lives. These PSG doesn't need $9 million. I mean, I'm certain the owners like to have it. It's not like they don't want it, but it's like a drop in the bucket for them. And then everybody else, it's been kind of in between. It's been maybe a financial win because a team like LAFC or Seattle getting that money, that's real for those owners. Even though obviously with the player dispute, they're not really getting it. But from a sporting side, it's like they're just like, can we show up well enough to like acquit ourselves well in a loss? And I'm not sure players really love to do that. So what does it bring for the fans? I think what it brings for the fans is the ability to exactly what y'all are talking about. See two teams with completely different styles. We're not talking about different styles like Red Bull and Crew. Those are different styles, but we're talking about different cultures, different soccer cultures playing against each other, and getting to watch them try to figure that out. And that's the same thing you kind of get in the better versions of international soccer too. And so I think that's pretty cool. And then the chance to witness these other fans and see how they, support their teams and come out. I'm not saying, U.S. has a good soccer culture now, but to see how the Sundowns do it, like that's just a whole different level, right?
Yeah. It was fun being there this last Saturday. There was a family, a Brazilian family sitting right in front of me in the row in front of me. One of them had a Dortmund jersey on. The youngest kid had a Sundowns jersey on. The dad had a third division Brazilian team jersey on. The mom had they were just out having fun. And I know there were Brazilian players, one on each of Dortmund and the Sundowns. And so they were cheering for either one of those two players that were doing really well. And by the end, they started looking at the youngest son who was just cheering for the Sundowns and screaming and super passionate. And they're like, you've got to stop, man. Like it was so fun just to watch how, specifically, as you mentioned, the South American fans. I know ESPN Brazil was out there, interviewed one of the guys that I was with who's from Sao Paulo, who actually got on TV and waved to his dad in Sao Paulo, which was pretty cool, from TQL Stadium. It just a ton of fun seeing some different types of soccer, different types of play, live and in person. And I'll tell you what, you mentioned these Brazilian teams. They're taking it to some of these European teams and just saying, here's what we've got. Here's what we bring in South America. So I think what a cool opportunity. You mentioned international soccer. They get 2-3 weeks to train together, right? These are clubs that have been playing together all season, all year, some for years at a time. So they've got the chemistry. They're here for a reason. It is fun to see them play that out. We do have some local soccer that has been happening. Thanks for engaging in that conversation with me, guys, about international stuff, Club World Cup and the Gold Cup. We do have some local soccer happening in Cincinnati, and Justin Blair, our very own Justin Blair, has done some work and some pieces on those teams. The King's Hammer women's team is rising, and I believe has taken out the top 2 teams in their division, and are rising to the top. Justin has been doing some work there. There's a video on YouTube. Interviewed some of the players after the last match. Check that out. We've got some orange and blue profiles. Our interview with Nick Haglund from last week is on there as an orange and blue profile. If you missed the show and don't want to listen to us ramble, but you want to hear what Nick Haglund has to say, be sure and check that out. That was a really fun interview. There's a lot happening. Even though FC Cincinnati hasn't been playing, there's a lot happening around Cincinnati Soccer Talk, and we love to cover it and talk about it and fill you in on all that. If you like what we're doing and you're interested in being a part of it and supporting what we're doing, visit us at cincinnati-soccertalk.com/support. You can join Patreon from there and maybe even join us in our final round of the Growler Cup here coming up towards the end of the season. We're going to round out this episode. We're getting close to the 10 o'clock hour. We weren't sure if we were going to make it here without a lot of FC Cincinnati talk, but here we are, guys, at the 10 o'clock hour. We made it. I knew we could do it. Final thoughts, Coach. I want to pass it to you.
Sure. Some of us, I won't be naming names, Jose, have been saying that 1-goal wins are not sustainable. I'm just kidding, not to call you out, Jose, because we've kind of talked about this a little bit, because in a way, I think you're really, really right. Against teams that you expect to beat, if you go up to Montreal on Wednesday and you try to cling to a 1-goal lead, then it only takes 1 or 2 bad bounces and you've dropped a result. But I think after this Montreal match, I think this is where we're really going to decide, is the 1-goal win a feature or a bug for FC Cincinnati? I think all of us would say right now, if they go and put up 1-goal wins against Orlando, Chicago, Crew, 2 games against Miami, at RSL, those next 6 games, I think we'd all be pretty thrilled with that. So, against teams that you want to be really solid defensively and take your one chance and get that 1-goal lead. But like everyone, I'm hoping Montreal can be a nice, comfortable win heading into this deep, dark stretch of the season. So we'll see.
Thanks, Coach, for being on. Always good insight. We didn't have a whole lot of tactics to talk tonight, but we will coming up here in the next couple of weeks with Cincinnati getting going. Thanks for being on tonight. Always good to have you. Jacob, final thought.
So we are into the dog days of summer. Not really. Summer solstice actually just happened earlier this week. It's happened on Friday. For those of you who don't know, summer is here. The dog days of the season are here, though. It's going to be really hot. Every time you go to TQL Stadium, the competition is going to start to pick up here. We're going to get some tough teams into TQL Stadium. I am really, really excited to see what this team does in the back half of this season. They're in a really good spot right now, and they've won a lot of games. FC Cincinnati fans have been frustrated with how they're winning games, and there's been people who are like, well, it doesn't matter how you win a game; it's that you won the game. And in certain cases, that's true. But I want to see these guys really put it together, and I want to see them prove it. I want them to come out here with a lot of passion, a lot of fire. I want them to really show it to us fans. But I'm excited. I feel like I was talking before the show. The whole month of June, there's no FC Cincinnati soccer at TQL Stadium. It's been kind of rough. It's been kind of weird because that doesn't happen very often. So. Yeah. I'm excited to get back to the stadium and watch the team in the league, against some really good opponents. So that's what I'm looking forward to. Just bring on the back half of the season and bring on the playoffs after that.
Let's go. Let's go. Jacob, thanks for being on tonight, man. It's good to have you back.
Thank you.
Love your insight and your passion for the game, and the fact that we could talk some Club World Cup. We were both in the stadium and didn't run into each other. It was kind of unfortunate there, but good to have you on the show tonight. Thanks for being here. My final thought as I wrap up the show here is going to be pretty obscure. Last week, I said, I assessed this first half of the season, I said it feels like a song that really never gets going. Like if you listen to, there's a couple bands that I feel like their songs just they're just here, the same level all the way through. The beat never drops, the guitars never kick in, the drums never take off. And that's what this season has felt like to me. My hope this week in Montreal, there's a song by NF called The Search. I don't know if you know this artist. He's great. One of my favorites. There's a song by The Search. It's called The Search, where it's kind of like that. He's running at the same pace, good rapper, right? And the beat just cuts out. And you're like, okay, what happened? And then the beat drops hard. That's what I'm hoping here. We've had this break, we've had this gap, and the beat just drops hard in Montreal, and we're in it, and we're going fast. We're going full speed the rest of the season. That's my hope. That's what I want to see in Montreal. Let's start fast. Let's start strong, and let's take it to Montreal with more than a 1-goal win. And let's kick the second half of the season off. Thanks for listening to Cincinnati Soccer Talk tonight. Always glad to have you all here with us in the chat, listening later in the week. We will see you. I think we've got a show maybe coming up Thursday after this Montreal game, after this beat drop in Montreal. We'll talk about that match and more this Thursday night on Cincinnati Soccer Talk.